and howdy everyone. It's Jeannie with Paper Pixie Ink, and today I am going to do a relatively quick tutorial on how to create a simple cardstock only folio. These are some papers that I had left over in my stash from something I made a while back now, or at least it feels like a while back. Obviously it's not a full collection. It's only, you know, a handful of papers really. So it's going to be simple. We are going to have a couple pockets, and I am just going to make some really quick and simple journaling cards with these. I'm going to back them with just some black cardstock as well. So I'm going to use some 110-pound black cardstock. This is 8.5 by 11, and I will link to some in the description as well. This is an old collection, so I can't link to this. I will see if I can find any collections that are similar, and I will link to those if I can find any, but this one is no longer available that I am aware of anyway. So to get started, I am just going to cut these two pieces that I have that are the cards, and we will move on. Okay, so these are our papers. I am going to create my base folio. So again, this is 110-pound cardstock, so it's nice and thick. It doesn't have a whole lot of give. I mean, it's not going to be as strong as a chipboard cover, but these are really quick and easy to create. So these pages are 6 by 8s. So 6 by 8. So I am going to create this at 8 1/4 by 6 1/4. Because I'm going to make a simple folio, I'm going to cut these to 8 1/4 and then 8 1/4. And we'll score that in a second. And I'm going to do 2 of those, and those will be my 2 flaps, one on the left and one on the right, to create the folio. So 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. And then my back piece is just going to be 6 1/4 by 8 1/4. So that's our back piece. And then we are going to have a piece that flaps from either the left or the right. So to create that, we want it to be 6 1/4 plus a 1/2 inch to create the flap. So we are going to cut that to 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. And then we are going to create one of those for the other side as well. So one on the left and one on the right. So 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. So next we're going to grab our So we're going to grab our scoreboard, and so we have two pieces that are 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. We have one piece that is 6 1/4 by 8 1/4. And then we have two pieces that are 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. So these are going to be our front and or our left and right flaps. So our page needs to be 6 1/4. So we're going to score it 6 1/4. And then I want it to be an inch wide. Probably don't need that much space, but I'm going to decorate it. So we're going to do 6 1/4, 7 1/4, and this is like our spine right here. And then this 1 inch section here is going to be what we use to attach to our back piece, and that just gives it a little bit more durability. So we're going to take our second 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 and do the exact same thing. So 6 1/4 for our flap, and then 7 1/4 for our spine and our attachment. And then these are going to be our inside flaps. So I'm going to just score this at 6 1/4 and this one at 6 1/4. So we have our front, or our left and right flaps, our back, and our inside flaps. So I am going to take my bone folder and I am going to fold my score lines. Make sure I burnish them really, really well. I'm going to grab some liquid adhesive and I am going to glue down my two flaps. So I'm just going to take this end piece here, this 1 inch section, I'm just going to apply my liquid adhesive to the whole section. You don't want to put too much on because you don't really want it squirting out all over the place. And you could use a combination of liquid adhesive and double-sided adhesive. It's really up to you. I find for these that generally this is usually enough. I'm just going to line this up as best I can and press it down and burnish. So there's my first flap, and you could make an album just like this if you wanted. So I'm going to do the other side. It's the same thing, just going to put liquid adhesive all along my edges. Make sure I have pretty good coverage, but not too thick. I'm going to lay this down and I'm just going to place this on top of it like I did for the other side. So now we have that. I'm going to attach these on top of my spine. And I'm just going to apply liquid adhesive along here, and then I'm going to line it up along here. So now we have an inside flap. And we're just going to do that exact same thing on this side. So now we have our base folio. So it's really pretty basic. So I am also going to create a couple of pockets, and I think I'll just create them on the front of my inside flaps. So a pocket here and a pocket here. And the great thing about when you do pockets, that's where we're going to put these once we've mounted them on some cardstock. But the great thing about these is that you can take one piece of paper, of your pattern paper, and you can just cut it to fit the pocket. So you don't have to have two separate pieces of paper in order to do that. You just have one, you cut it at the correct height for the size of your pocket, and then you can just tuck in the top a little bit, and it works out perfectly. So to create our pockets, we are just going to grab some pieces of cardstock, and I'm just going to use, I have quite a bit of scrap pieces, and so I'm just going to use a couple pieces of my scraps. There we go. To create my pockets. So the pages are 6 1/4 inches wide, so we are going to cut these to 7 1/4. And we're going to need 2 of them because we're going to create 2 pockets. And then we're going to grab our scoreboard. Grab our scoreboard. And we are going to score these. We're going to score them at 1/2 inch. So 6 3/4 inches. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to do 4 1/4 inches. And then 6 3/4 again. So this piece of paper or piece of cardstock was 4 3/4. You can really use any size that you want for a pocket. It's entirely up to you. These just happen to be pieces of scrap that worked out well for me to cut to 7 1/4, and they were already 4 3/4. We're actually going to do that for both of these. So 6 3/4, 4 1/4, and 6 3/4. Okay. So I'm going to grab some paper snips, and I am going to cut diagonally across where the 2 score lines meet on both corners. And I'm going to do that on both. And then I'm going to fold all my score lines and burnish them all down. So let's go ahead and glue these down. So you're going to have one on here, and then one on here. We're just going to apply liquid adhesive on our little 1/2-inch flaps that we created. And again, you want to try and get it as close to the edges as possible and get nice good coverage, especially since this is a heavier cardstock that I'm using. I like to make sure that it adheres really, really well because I don't want them pulling off. Okay. So now coming together. So I am going to take all of these cut aparts that I have, and I am going to cut some black cardstock to just back them and create very simple rectangular cards. So these should all pretty much measure the same thing. So they're 3 inches by 4 inches, and they should all be roughly the same. So I'm going to cut 8 of those. And I'm just going to use scraps that I have that are big enough for those. So obviously some of these aren't enough, but I try and keep all of my scraps. I try and use as much as I can. Sometimes it might be 10 projects in, but I try and use as much as I can. So I'm going to cut them to 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and pick out the paper that I want for all of my pages. So obviously not super difficult. And when I'm done, I will most likely have to find something to coordinate on these two sides. I might just use like a coordinating cardstock that like has a color that matches, or maybe I'll use some foil or glitter or something. But because I'm keeping this very simple, I'm not going to create a closure for this either. So there's my front and my back. So that's how that shapes up. So for our pages here, this is 4 1/4. So I'm going to take this and obviously make sure that if you are using a piece of paper where it matters, like the florals go this way, make sure that you are cutting the correct side. In the case of this, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to cut this to 4 inches because the pocket is 4 1/4 and we want to leave a little bit of space around it. So this will be my pocket. And this will go above my pocket. And we're just going to do that for the other piece as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue all of these pages down, and then we will work on doing a little bit of the finishing work. So I'm just going to use some basic glitter paper to cover my spines and the inside. So I am going to switch out my blade. I'm going to cut this to 8 inches. And then we know this and this are 1 inch, so I'm going to cut it to about 7/8 of an inch. And I need 2, so I'm going to put 1 here. And 1 here. And then on the inside, we have these spaces here, and then these spaces here. So I'm going to cut to 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to need 4 of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue all those down. So again, these were cut to 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 because these are all 3 inches by 4 inches. And I'm just going to mat every single one of these. So there you have it. It is a very basic little cardstock only album, but you can do quite a bit to decorate this. You could use, you know, some flowers, or you could use some cute little, you know, butterfly die cuts if you have them, or, you know, on your electronic die cutting machine, maybe, you know, you have some SVG files or whatever. You could definitely do lots of different florals and leafy pieces. So very basic. And again, you saw it was only 12 sheets of 6x8 paper that I used to create this, along with a little bit of glitter to just kind of finish off those areas that didn't have paper on them. So it's a great way to use up some of your leftover pattern paper that you have from collections. And you can do these in various sizes. Obviously, the larger you make it, the less stable it will be if you're using cardstock only. But I would say a 6x8 or 6 1/4 by 8 1/4 is probably the max that I would do in this kind of design. But you can make them bigger. You can double up some of your the more pages you have, obviously, the more stable it will be. So there are always tons and tons of options, and these come together really quick. And you have like some areas for some, like, you could put 5x7 photos in here, and you could make this a very simple, sweet little gift for somebody. They come together really, really quickly. They have space for photos, so you could put like a 3x5 or 3.5x5 photo on here. You could put one on here. You could tuck more photo mats inside. You have these you could use as journaling cards, so you could just take, you know, a white gel pen, for example, or silver or gold, and, you know, write on the backs of these, and you still have the spaces for photos. You could put a 5x7 photo here and one here. You could put them over top of the written words here. Again, you could put the smaller photos here. You have a space here. So there's quite a bit of space in this, and it does come together really, really quickly. So they make a nice quick gift if you are looking for something that you can personalize for somebody. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and if you are interested in seeing more, don't forget to click on that subscribe button. Thanks, everyone.